Today we have notifications. So we're going to look at how you can configure them for your business needs specifically. We're going to look at refunds and what you can expect in terms of refunds from the different schemes that you may be a part of. We're going to look at TL Pay account, which is really introducing TL Pay account as our upcoming payment method within the platform. We're going to again look at Task Scheduler. We looked at that in the webinar last month, but today we're going to provide further guidance on setting up reports that are really specific for what your business needs, and I'll go through some of the differences that you might see on different schemes in terms of the report settings that you need. We're going to look at managing users, so how you can add new users, disable existing users, and also reset to FA for any of your users. So if anybody in your team needs that resetting, we'll show you how to do that. And we're also going to have a Q&A section. So your opportunity to ask any questions, please feel free to ask those verbally, send them in via a message in chat, or if you don't feel comfortable asking in the call, then do get in touch after as well. Okay, so first on the agenda, we have notifications. I'm going to hand you over to Simon, who's going to talk through notifications a little bit today.
Sorry, I was on mute. Great. Thank you, Michaela. Right, so the system can be quite chatty with notifications. And so we allow you to configure and set up which notifications you get. However, I think it's quite important that you do have certain configurations switched on, otherwise you won't get the alerts that you need to, which I'll go through some of those in a minute with you. There's different delivery methods, and you can either see the notifications on platform, which I will show you in a demo in a minute, or you can get them emailed through to yourself. And there's different types of notifications. So you've got different categorizations, where it's an alert, a message, or a warning. I think they're a little bit confusing, if I'm honest with you, and I'm going to look to simplify that a bit. But I'll step through the different types of messages that we distribute at the moment. And then, of course, there's a reset configuration if you just want to set it back to defaults and the way it was originally set up. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and just show you what I'm referring to. If I could just get that logged in and then share my screen. There we go. Right, here we go. So hopefully the screen is now displaying to everybody. So I've just logged in into our test system, just as a basic seller account, and I'll just bring up notifications. So sometimes you'll see there's a little bell at the top right there, or a number of notifications to the right here, and within that you will have a multitude of different types of messages coming in from the system. And within this page, you can filter down by date, you can filter by type, you can also filter by module. So these are the different modules. And depending on whether you're a seller or a buyer, some of these are more important or not to you. I'd say system is important to everybody. And system will give you information about either participants that are joining or leaving the platform. It also, certainly if you're a buyer, agents, that is, it'll tell you you've got transactions to action and give you reminders about that. The areas around FTP delivery and email data delivery and invoice importer, those three I'd say are very specific to suppliers and sellers. And that's when they're uploading their transactions, they can get notifications of successful transaction upload or failure uploads. So those are very important for the supplier side of the community. Payments is common to all. Payments will tell you whether there's been a BACS failure, if there's any issues with your mandate, both seller and the buyer side of that transaction will get any alerts to that effect around this. And finally, if you've got reports scheduled, it's just more warnings if the reports are not running. So it's not the most important area of this. But I would say system and payments are probably your most important areas that you do want to have switched on and configured. For some examples, let's just go to system. Let's filter on that. So we can just see if a particular, so this is some testing we did. If we deactivated a branch or reactivated it, you get system alerts to that effect. Within this, is not showing in my screen at the moment, but you would also get the system alerts, which says, hey, you've got transactions to go and approve or reject. Please go into the system and have a look at them. So you'll get notifications to that effect. So all the invoice importer parts, I mentioned that's from a seller perspective. It'll tell you what's been uploaded, is successful or not, any error messaging around that. But I would say you definitely want to, if you're a seller and you're automating your uploads, you definitely want to get this switched on so that you are getting a confirmation that your invoices have been imported. And if you don't get that confirmation, then obviously you need to have a look or raise a support ticket with us. And finally, around payments, as I mentioned, we've got messaging around any issues with mandates impacting you or a trade partner. You would get some messaging around that. Okay. So in terms of how you configure what you want and don't want to receive, it's in a different section. Ideally, it would be on the same page, but you go into settings and you go onto notification configuration, and all those different categories I showed you are all here as to whether you want to receive information about it, yes or no. All right. So if, for instance, as I said, I think system is very important.
Simon, just confirm your session so it doesn't log you out. You've got the test settings on.
Thank you very much. Didn't see that. That's behind another little window. So on here, you've got, as I said, we've got all these different categories. And as I said, system, I think, is important. And you have two sections. You have a section which says, hey, I only want to get these messages displayed in the notification area on the platform. I don't want it clogging up my inbox, my email. So I'm going to disable message and warning. I'm only going to switch on alerts. All right. Or you may say, actually, no, I want all messages coming through to my inbox as well. All right. And then you just save your configuration, and that's now saved those settings. FTP, if you're a buyer, you're probably not interested in that, so you're not going to worry about setting that up. Same with email and payments. I would definitely go in and I would certainly make sure everything is switched on for displaying in your notifications area. And it's really up to you what you want to come through to your inbox or not. Okay. So what we find is that a number of participants are not getting these emails for important messaging, like, hey, there's reminders of transactions, or another thing we do send is, for instance, a payment summary report. So at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday, once we calculate everything, we'll send you a notification saying you are either having this amount coming out of your bank account or you're having this amount coming into your bank account, depending whether you're getting a refund or you're a seller and you've got money coming in. So we'll send out a confirmation of that exact amount to you at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday. So if you're not getting those, then I would definitely come in and switch on your system notifications and your payment notifications, and then you will get those notifications coming through to you. Okay, so I think it's a very important area. And what we are looking to do is simplify it a bit more, but also I think switch on a few more default notifications so that important messages always come through. But you'll find that sometimes you've got multiple people in your team accessing the system, and some members of your team may just not be interested in receiving messages at all. Then they can come in here and they can just literally switch them all off, and that stops clogging up the inbox. Okay. So I think those are all the key areas around notifications. Michaela, have I missed anything?
Don't think so, no.
All right, I'll hand back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Okay. So next on the agenda, I'm going to go through refunds. And essentially what we're looking to do today is to explain what you should be expecting from different schemes. So I know some of you may just be on the ABTA scheme, some may just be on the Advantage scheme, or some of you may be on both of those schemes. Now the behaviour on the two schemes is somewhat different. So I wanted to go through the differences on the two schemes and essentially for you to understand when to expect money to be received in terms of refunds. So Advantage is the simplest one of the two. Advantage net their refunds overall. So at the end of the buyer review window on a Wednesday evening, what happens is Advantage take the total of any refunds off the total amount owed to the sellers from any buyers and net that down. So essentially what happens with Advantage is your netted total is collected from you. So you don't receive a refund separately. It all happens in one netting across all your suppliers. With the ABTA scheme, it's a little bit different. The ABTA scheme nets at a supplier level. So with ABTA, this is done on a supplier by supplier basis. So if you take supplier A and you owe them £600, but you've also got £300 in refunds, then that would be netted down for supplier A on its own separately. So there is just £300 collected from you. Whereas if you take supplier B, and supplier B, you have you owe them £600, but they owe you £700 in refunds. Well, in fact, then that would be netted down on its own. So that supplier owes you £100 in refunds separately. So the two aren't combined. There's no combination between separate sellers. Each mandate is separate with ABTA. So what does that mean really? The biggest question we get around refunds is why haven't I received my ABTA refund yet? And we get asked this regularly. The simple reason for that is ABTA collect and pay separately. So all funds have to pass through ABTA and be accounted for by ABTA before they're then dispersed as a payment to whoever the creditor is. So if you come to the buyer review window end on a Wednesday and you're a buyer and you're in debit to most of your suppliers, but you're in credit with one, so one supplier actually owes you a refund, what will happen is all the funds that you owe to your suppliers will be collected from you on that first Friday. Then those funds pass through ABTA. And at the same time, actually, sorry to simplify that, on the Friday when the funds are collected from you, the supplier that also owes you money has the funds collected from them that they owe you. So all the collections take place on the first Friday. ABTA receive those funds, account for them all, and then they disperse them. So on the second Friday, you would receive your refund as a buyer. So really, you'll see the money come out of your bank account on the first Friday after the review end as an ABTA buyer, but you won't see any refunds where you're in overall credit from a supplier until the following Friday.
Just to add to that, Michaela, which you might already, just to reiterate what you said, is an ABTA enforced policy, because their policy is, so there's no clawbacks, that any money that gets paid out by ABTA first has to be collected and cleared from the debtor. So if a supplier is the debtor and owes you money, they first have to collect the money from the supplier. It has to get cleared via BACS, and once it's cleared, then they say, right, now we'll pay it out. And that process takes an additional week for the money to be received in your bank account.
Yeah, and really as well, that all comes down to the timings on that, come down to how long it takes for BACS payments to clear. So we are, one of the slides we said we're going to cover next is our TL Pay account. And we hope that the implementation of the TL Pay account, it will speed up the refund process for you. If anybody has any questions about the ABTA or Advantage refund schemes, particularly the ABTA scheme where you've got that gap between your collections and then receiving refunds, we do have a section on our wiki that's dedicated specifically to the ABTA refund scheme. And there's a video on there which goes through various scenarios. So I'll make sure that gets shared once this webinar is shared, the recording, and hopefully that will clarify on that for you.
Just to clarify, which is on the next slide, I know, Michaela, the TL Pay account, which is going to be available later this year, we're going to go into that in a bit more detail on the next slide. It's a much quicker funds transfer process because it doesn't go via BACS. It's literally an online digital bank account between two parties, and those funds will instantly settle. So if you had a refund coming in, apologies, Michaela, I'm stealing your thunder. If you had a refund coming in, that money just will transfer and settle immediately. You don't have to wait for it to go to BACS and disbursement and the lengthy period that takes. Same applies to suppliers as well. They'll get the money on the flip side much quicker as well. Sorry, Michaela, I'll let you actually go through the detail on that now.
Yeah, no worries. So as Simon mentioned, TL Pay account is an upcoming feature. It's going to be a much swifter way of processing transactions with a wider range of partners. So I think for me, the best thing to liken it to is sort of a bit like PayPal. You were able to transact in multiple currencies, and you can also top up your TL Pay account. So the TL Pay account acts as your bank account within the Travel Ledger platform. So it sits in the Travel Ledger platform as its own bank account that you can fund in various currencies. I think initially it will be GBP and euros, but we will expand beyond that. And you fund that very much like you would PayPal by topping it up from your external bank account. You can transact quickly with a wide range of partners in the UK and the EU. So we will see transactions from schemes on here, but also you will be able to transact outside of schemes with partner-to-partner direct settlement. So there won't necessarily be a PE or processing entity sat in the middle of your transactions within the TL Pay account. You'll be able to send money directly from buyer to seller, seller to buyer, depending on the credit and debit situations. As well, you are able to withdraw funds from the platform through your TL Pay account. So as I say, you top up your account and it behaves like a bank account, but you are also able to withdraw those funds. So say you receive a large payment and you want to take that out and put it into your bank account, that's also easily and quickly done in the platform. So yeah, that's why it does behave much quicker than the traditional BACS relationship that you're used to having for your transactions. So I can give you a little bit of an overview of what that's going to look like as we have that in our test environment. So bear with me whilst I just sign in. I'm just logging into one of my test users who has, their company has a wallet on the Travel Ledger platform, so they have a TL Pay account. Okay, so you can see on the left-hand side, you've got your usual menu, but there'll be an unfamiliar item here, which is a TL Pay account. If we click into that, you can see we have our active TL Pay account. And my company here, my wallet supplier testing company, transacts in both GBP and euros. So I have separate accounts for my GBP and my euros here, and I can flick between the two. So I can review GBP or I can click into euros.
Michaela, it's still displaying the presentation. It's not displaying.
Oh no. Let me new share. Sorry, I was sharing the wrong thing. Can you see it now?
Yes, there we go. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start again on this bit. Thanks, Simon. So on the left-hand side, you've got your usual menu, but we've got the new item, which is the TL Pay account. So you can click into TL Pay account and you'll see that my wallet supplier testing here This company has a couple of different accounts. They're operating in GBP and in euros as well. So you've got tiles for both of those. I can click on GBP as I am now, and I can see all my recent transactions in GBP. And likewise, I can do the same for euros. I can click into euros and see my recent transactions with euros. Now the transactions here, this behaves a little bit like your bank statement in your online banking app. It shows recent transactions, be that a withdrawal of funds from your account, which is labeled as withdrawal, TLPay, so a TLPay account to TLPay account transaction between, say, a buyer and a seller. And it will also show any funding of an account as well. So it will show any money going in, so a deposit as well. You get a status for your transactions. So are they approved? Are they pending? Was it a transaction that failed? You get an amount, the date of the transaction, and there will also be a timestamp applied here shortly. You get a reference as well. Where a remittance ID is relevant, you get a remittance ID and also a commercial link. So if it's a partner-to-partner transaction, then you can see who that was with through the commercial link name here. The last column we have here is a running total. So this is just your balance going up and down as money comes in and out of your wallet. Okay.
Okay, I was just going to add one thing. So we are, it's pretty mature now, and we are iterating, and we are going to add a manual remittance option as well, so you can put your own reference in. So if you are literally, withdrawing money into your bank account, and if you've got separate teams managing certain funds, you can put manual notes to that effect, so that shows up in your bank account. So we will add that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. So how do you fund your TLPay account? How do you add money to it? So you'll see here, we've got the transactions tab, which we've just looked at. Next door, we've got the funding tab. So if we click on funding, you'll see there's some bank account details below. And what these represent are the bank account details for your TLPay account. So if I wanted to go into my NatWest bank account, say, and add funds from that to my TLPay account, I can take the details here and use them to send the funds. So I know the account number and the sort code and the details, so that money will successfully go into my TLPay account. So that's where you get your funding information from. And then we also have the withdraw option here. So you can see you've got the withdraw tab. Underneath you have a whitelisted account. So what it means by a whitelisted account is an account with matching bank details to the TLPay account that has been used to fund your TLPay account. You can then also withdraw your funds to that same account. So that's whitelisted, it's cleared as a suitable match, the names on the two accounts match, and you're able to withdraw your funds to the account that you've previously funded from. So you can select your account here. You may have more than one. In this scenario, there's just one. I can see my available balance. I can put in an amount of, say, £1.50. I just want to take out today. And then, as Simon mentioned, we can add your own manual reference here. So I can call this Michaela Test, and then I would be able to submit that for a withdrawal and get the funds out to my own bank account outside of TLPay. Simon, is there anything you want to add on that before?
Yeah, just to say that we're literally starting to pilot this product, and it will be available. It'll shift across to this, actually. Everything will move across to this around about Q3 later this year. If anybody wants to join a pilot before then, we would absolutely welcome that. So if you wanted to transact with maybe a partner outside of Apta, be that a supplier or an agent, you would have the ability to do so via this mechanism. Apta is fully across everything we're doing with this mechanism, and they're very keen for it to come into play in the not too distant future. So if you want more information, I think we've also got a might be on your slide, but we've got a link to a video which goes into in-depth detail on the TLPay accounts, who are partners behind this, you know, giving you confidence that your money is secure, working with tier 1 banks, and it goes into a bit more detail around how it works. If you want more information on this, we've got a link to that, which we'll send out later.
Yeah, we'll share that when we share the webinar recording as well. And yeah, just to add to the pilot will be in both pounds and euros. So, you know, if you've got partners in either currency, then we're happy to talk to you about pilot. Okay, so I'm going to pop back into my presentation. Oh. Can you see that, Simon? Does that
Yes,
work?
yep, all good, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So the next topic on the agenda for today is the task scheduler. Again, we looked at this in the last webinar, but we wanted to provide some further guidance and support on using this key feature. I think it's a really great handy tool for getting things to you on a regular basis, getting reports to you regularly without you necessarily having to log into the platform. So we're going to go into Task Scheduler and have a look at some of those reports. But essentially, there's a variety of formats available for similar outputs. So in terms of your reconciliation, I just wanted to give you some pointers and make sure you're using the best thing for you. I wanted to cover again, tailoring the date windows targeted by the report to make sure you're covering all angles and getting all the data that you need. Depending on the scheme you're on. So is it ABTA or Advantage? There's different settlement cycles. Advantage having the 2 weeks for review, and then ABTA just having the 1. And we'll look at how you can set up delivery. So you can download the reports from the platform, but you know the main thing to do with these reports are to deliver them automatically, either by email or by FTP. So we can go through that. And you can also schedule when you receive your reports. So do you want them on a single day a week, or do you need them several days a week? And I can show you how to do that as well. And lastly, you can, if you have existing reports and you want to change the way they're set up. So perhaps you want to move away from looking at the last 7 days, which was all we offered previously, and now look at the collection dates. And then we can show you how to do that. Okay. So I'm going to go into the platform now. Second, I'm not doing very well remembering my passwords today. That one, that's why. There we go. Okay, so if I navigate again to the task scheduler, that's under the settings section, and it's right down at the bottom here, task scheduler. And you can see in here you've got your setup section, so we can set up a new report. So you need to name your task every time, so I'll call it Michaela Weekly Rec. And then there's a variety of templates you can choose from. So Simon, you're really great with this area as well, so feel free to chip in if I miss anything you want to cover. We've got the basic seller rec options here, but then we've also got the transactions and remittances reports. I think what I wanted to clarify is the difference really. So these basic seller rec reports are in what you would call the traditional SPS format. So they will export your transactional data from the platform into that SPS text format that you've all used historically in that old system. So if you are using that and that's configured with your back office already, then that's a great option for you to use. Whereas the transactions report delivers to you in a much more reader user-friendly version, because that comes out as a CSV file of all your transactions. I think as well, this is what will be going forward most widely supported. So the transactions is a really good one to look at. Remittance is remittance specific. So that will share with you information on a remittance by remittance basis rather than a transaction by transaction basis, which is what the transactions report does. So they do what they say on the tin, really. So if we take a transactions report here, I'm going to give my output file a name. Again, I'm just going to call it Michaela Weekly Rec. However, I think every time this is generated, it gets like a date and time stamp on it anyway. So every week when you get it, you will get a slightly different name to your file rather than them overlapping all the time. So as discussed, this one is specifically in CSV format. And then the next part is to look at the period it's relative to. So what period do I want this report to cover? And this is where it becomes really important, depending on your role and the schemes that you're using. So straightforward, first up, let's look at the ABTA scheme. On the ABTA scheme, you have a weekly collection. So you have a weekly review and you have a weekly collection. So a great one to use on the ABTA scheme is to use, I'm going to go by collection start date, and then I'm going to have a period of the last collection. So if I want to do my reconciliation on a Wednesday evening, Thursday morning for the ABTA review period just gone, I can run this by collection start date, period last collection, and I can set that up to be delivered to me at, say, 8 a.m. weekly on a Thursday, and that works perfectly for the ABTA scheme. Additionally, for buyers on the Advantage scheme, this can also work for you. Obviously, on the Advantage scheme, we have a review period every week, but the collection only happens every second week. So you'll review some transactions, accept, reject, amend them on the Advantage scheme, and then you'll do the same again the next week before the collection actually takes place. So as a buyer, you can run by last collection. If you run both schemes, 1 week you'll just get the ABTA results, and then the following week you'll get ABTA and Advantage. Whereas I think the bit where you need to change it slightly is if you're a seller on the Advantage scheme. So if you're a seller on the Advantage scheme, where you may want to look at commit date is when we have the files being loaded and reviewed every week, but then the collection only happened in the second week. Well, at the end of the first week, you're still going to want to review what's been accepted, rejected, amended by your buyers. So then you know what you need to load for the next week. So my suggestion for any sellers on the Advantage scheme is to actually run your report by commit date and then use the last 7 days. And what that will do, it will generate your report based on any transactions you have committed to the Travel Ledger platform for review by your buyers within the last 7 days. So that should be your catch-all on the Advantage scheme. Simon, anything to add on that specific?
I'll just say that we're trying to cover a lot of ground on which options to configure. If you got any, I would say set up schedule tasks. It's a great way of getting information out of the system. And we get a lot of requests for a print option. Print option is our solution to the print option. So if you want to know what you're paying or what transactions you've accepted, what transactions have been accepted, then set up a scheduled task to send you the relevant information at the relevant time. So 4 o'clock on a Wednesday or first thing in the following morning. If you have any questions or you need some help with this, just pop an email to support. We'll happily help you through setting this up. And we've also got some good documentation around this to help you set it up. So we're here to help, but I would recommend you set up scheduled tasks.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. So you are able to, as I mentioned before, have either secure FTP or email as your delivery methods. So you can tick what you like depending on that. So if you want to do email, you can tick email, and then you have the option to either tick and say email company admins, so that it goes to anybody within your company who's an admin, or you can specify specific email addresses on top of that or on their own. So you can type them in here, and I think you just put a comma between each one and it'll accept numerous email addresses input here. I think email delivery is the most popular option, but if secure FTP is what you're looking for, then you can select that here. But if you need information on the configuration for that, all you need to do is click into data delivery here, and whoever is responsible for your FTP connections can find the details here, so you can either use that or pass it on to the relevant person in the IT department to set that up for you with the instructions. So back to scheduling tasks as well. In terms of your task frequency, you can run the same task for numerous times a week if you want. So I mentioned a Thursday, and that's quite a common one, a Thursday morning, to see what's been accepted, rejected, amended that week. But also some people might like to receive them on a Monday morning to see what's come in for them to review this week. So, you know, you can set up tasks on more than one day by selecting more than one day here. And if anybody, based on what we've discussed today, or want support from us and we can help with getting the best reports configured for you, you can edit your existing reports. So if you can see on the list down here, I've got all these reports here. You can delete reports. So I can delete this one, say, that I've set up previously, or you can edit reports as well. So if you simply tick the little pencil button here, it populates all the information about your file up here again, and then you can change anything you want. So say I want to receive this now on a Thursday, I could change that and I could save it, and I can also rename it if I want to as well. So lots of things you can do, change all your configuration there. I think the other 2 points on here are you've got this little run button, so like what's like a play button. If you press this, the report will generate immediately right now and be delivered to whatever delivery method you've pre-configured, so your FTP or your email. Or if you want something immediately, you can use the download button and download the report right now to your computer. So that was everything I wanted to cover on the task scheduler today. Simon, have you got anything you want to add before I move on?
No, I think that's great. Thanks, Michaela.
Okay. Okay, so the last section I want to cover with you in today's session is, we've gone back, managing users. So how can you manage the users associated with your company? I think it's really important to keep on top of any users you have to avoid unauthorized access to the platform. So if you have anybody leaving the business, going on maternity leave or on sabbatical, you're able to manage their access in the platform. You can edit user details, you can disable users, and you can also reset two-factor authentication for your own users. So if you do have a user who gets locked out of the platform, they lose their phone, they get a new phone, and then you can reset that for them, so they don't even need to raise a support call with us. It's a really quick one-click solution. So I'll walk you through that a little bit now. So if we go back into the platform, and again, staying in the settings section, we've got companies and users. If we click into companies and users, You can see we've got our company information at the top, but then underneath we've got manage users. So you'll see here that there's 3 icons. We've got an edit user. So I can click on edit user and I can change the name. So if someone's name changes or their email address gets updated, then you can change that here. Additionally, you can change their role type. So they can either become an admin if you want to upgrade them to an admin and give them more permissions and ability to support you, you can do that. Or you can have somebody as a normal user. Essentially, the difference between an admin and a normal user is both can go into the platform and review transactions, accept and reject, can schedule tasks, can receive notifications, etc. But only an admin can manage the company for themselves. We do generally suggest, if possible, that you have 2 admins. And the reason I say have 2 admins is so there's always somebody who can reset your 2-factor authentication. You can do that through us, through our support team. It means sending in an email and someone on our end actioning that for you. Whereas if you have somebody in your own team who can do that for you, it's super, super quick and easy. So I'll show you where you would click here. We've got an active 2FA user down here. So you'll see they've got this little rounded arrows icon here. And you can click on reset 2-factor authentication. And what that does is it means next time they log in, instead of being prompted to enter their 6-digit code, they'll be represented with that QR code that you get the first time you log in. So they're able to rescan that and generate a new 6-digit code. So really useful for anybody as an admin. You're able to reset that for anybody in your team. So if you have 2 admins, you can reset them for each other if you lose your phone. Whereas if you only have 1 admin, if the admin loses their phone or gets a new phone, then they need to come through to support because you can't reset your own 2FA. The last point as well is the little eye icon with a line through it. So you can really easily activate and deactivate users here. So let's say I want to deactivate this user. They don't need access to the platform anymore. They've left the business. All I need to do is click on this icon and that user is deactivated. If that user returns to the business for any reason, then I can easily click back on the eye icon and reactivate that user. So it's a really, really simple area of the platform to operate for admins, but not always one everybody's aware of. So I thought I'd share some overview on that with you. Simon, is there anything you want to add on managing users? There's not really much to it, is there? It's just these 3 things.
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, so that really concludes everything I wanted to go through with you today. So it's over to you really for question and answers. Anybody got anything they'd like to ask? I can see some messages in chat, which are hopefully some questions, but
yeah, no, it's been very active. Thank you for all the questions. One question I haven't answered yet is just on refunds. If you wouldn't mind just showing on the screen, questions come in is how to determine the date that you're going to get paid for your refund, if I've interpreted that question correctly.
Yeah. Okay, so you would, let me see if I can find a test that's got some data.
Change your quick view to buyer.
Buyer, that's buyer. Buyer past. Yeah. So what you would need to look at for that is the payment date, which may not be active in your buyer quick views by default. It's usually review end and collection date, but you can easily activate that. So if you go to the columns tab here, navigate down to payment, select that column, and you'll see the date when you can expect to receive the funds into your bank account if you're the creditor.
I think it's once we enable it, it'll also be on the payment statement tab, which we demonstrated in a previous session. Yeah. Which we will hopefully switch on soon, which is ironing out some final little tweaks on that. Okay, thank you for that, Michaela. Another question around refunds, if I just stick with that. So the question is around, on the Advantage scheme, refunds are immediate. Obviously on the Apta scheme, refunds are a week later. And so the question is, if you move or subscribe to the Advantage scheme, does that mean you're going to get your refunds quicker? Now, obviously, you will for the suppliers that are filing transactions on the Advantage scheme. Yes, you would get refunds from them quicker. However, if the suppliers are on the Apta scheme and only on the Apta scheme, they would only file on the Apta scheme, and therefore those refunds would take that extra week. You could request the supplier to move on to the Advantage scheme as well, but suppliers tend to stick to one scheme because I think it's, especially between Apta and Advantage, they tend to just stick to either or. Obviously, once we've got the TL pay accounts in place, this problem goes away. But for the moment, those are your limited options. I hope I've answered that question correctly. We had some good questions coming around the wallets, and some questions around, hey, like right now, I think the beauty of the back system is that it's just a pull mechanism, as we call it. So it just goes and takes the money, obviously, provided you've accepted them, and obviously there's a mandate in place. And so, that's quite nice and an easier mechanism to maintain. But if you've got to fund your TL pay account, you could forget to fund that. So we've done a lot of thinking around this, and we will send out, so at say, for instance, 4 o'clock on a Wednesday at the end of the review period, we will send out reminders, and a couple of them, one immediately and one just before, saying you've got to fund your TL pay account. And you will have probably 48 hours to do that, but we're working through the cycle of what it needs to be. It could be as little as 24 hours, but it's probably not enough time to go in and just fund your TL pay account with the relevant amount of money that you need to put in there, what you owe, and we'll tell you exactly what that is. Now, I know it's an extra, possibly would be seen as an extra step, but effectively the way we're viewing it is that it's the same as you're doing today if you were paying suppliers via direct bank transfer from your bank account. It's a similar thing. It's also obviously an additional bank account, so it's one extra account that you need to manage. But we will put everything in place to automate that as much as possible. We've looked at lots of options to try and automatically top up your TL pay account, but there's nothing easy to do that at the moment in the open banking technology that's out there. So for now, you would need to top up your TL pay account, but we'll give you plenty of time to do that, and we'll give you plenty of reminders to do so.
Yeah, and then the benefit is once you've done that, then the funds are straight in, and then they can go straight out. So any payments and receival of payments is much quicker.
Okay. I've also had some questions around TL pay, and actually, will it become mandatory? The likelihood is yes, certainly on the Apta scheme. And the funds all flow through Apta right now, and they want to move away from that. So the funds would flow through these bank accounts effectively, which are your own bank accounts. And so it will all move to that, with the exception of possibly the Advantage scheme, which will stay on the BACS system. Now, obviously, this is all going to go through consultation. We're consulting a lot of people, and hence we're talking about Q3 implementation. And we will send out lots more information around this. So we're just giving you some early views of what it's about, gauging feedback. And if there's any amendments we need to make to the process, we will happily take on board your advice. Right, we've got a question around duplicate transactions. So in this, if there are duplicates filed, they should be underlining in red. So the booking reference should underline in red, and that indicates that we've picked up that it is the same booking reference and the same amount of money that has either been filed in the same cycle or was previously been paid in a previous cycle. We will cross-check the history on that. If it's underlined in orange, it means we've matched in the booking reference, but the values are different, and it's just a warning to you. Now, we are doing a lot more work in this area to actually block it at source. So we will, at time of transactions being filed onto the platform by a supplier, we will give them warning if we detect that it's a duplicate. And then they will need to take appropriate action to then adjust or amend that transaction before they can commit it to you. So you should see less and less duplicates. I don't think it happens that often. Sometimes things get out of sync and it does happen, but we will be blocking this at source as well. So that's coming soon.
I think as well, I had some feedback on that in support recently, which was about, well, when you get to the season where things have had their deposit collected and then it's balance time, you're going to see a lot of orange flagging, which is maybe they felt it was too much. But with the extended file format and the more sellers that are submitting to buyers using the extended file format, you are specifying within that format, it's mandatory to advise whether it's a deposit or a balance. So that will feed into the logic there. So we know you've had a deposit, but this new transaction is actually for the balance, then it wouldn't flag.
Yes, and as more and more suppliers are using extended file format, you're now getting that information on your screen, which tells you whether it's a deposit or a balance due. If you're not seeing that on your screen, just enable the column transaction type. You'll also see there's a lot more information there. So we're starting to see commission values being filed in as well, and supplementary information in the option fields, which the suppliers are starting to populate that information. And that's going to get richer and richer and richer as everyone subscribes to filing that data. Okay, got a question. Is there a template for the extended file format? Yes, there is. There's one on our wiki under uploads. Michaela, you can maybe just point to that for me, please. So you click on help.
Follow the help tab on the platform here in the menu. And then if you go to just the search bottom, if you put extended file, you can see extended file format for upload, come straight up. And there is a full guide to formatting the extended file. And a lovely document that you can download with all the rules and restrictions around that, and also some example files. So there's a full page on that to work through, which should be supporting. But if you do need any additional help, then do reach out to us in support, and we're happy to help as well with the onboarding of that.
Okay, we've taken up almost the full hour. Thank you for all remaining with us and concentrating on the wealth of information we've imparted to you. We're probably going to keep these. Sorry, Michaela, I always forget the slide. If you need more help or support, these are all the areas you can get help from. We'll put this recording on YouTube as well. There's our wiki, which Michaela just showed you how to access that. Our support desk is always ready to help you. So please email us on this if you have any questions. And obviously our website has some information as well. We're probably going to try and get these restricted to half an hour in future, just to help everybody, because we're imparting a lot of information, and we will be doing these webinars monthly. So feel free to join which ones are appropriate to you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Michaela, for talking for all those minutes.